Okay, Darren here. I'm going to take you out on location today yet again and shoot a video on the fly. It will be detailing unscripted. What I'm going to be working on is some scratch removal on a black Odyssey van. Let me apply the context for you. I got a call, and this is the glory of the internet, is I have not only is my skill set very diversified, but I optimize my website for all kinds of detailing, whether it's gel coat restoration, chip repair, scratch removal, decal removal, go down the list. I'm very diversified. So I've got a lot of ways to make money. So I get a call from a guy. He says he was backing out of a garage, hit his friend's car, so he wants to see if I can fix it. When it comes to scratches and chips and that type of repairs, you never know what you're going to roll up on into, and only experience can really basically dictate what is possible. Not only assessing what is the nature of the beast on the phone and managing people's expectations, but when you roll up onto it, most of the time it's not going to be as they describe. It's going to be very different. Hi, neighbor. Yes, I'm in my home garage. Anyhow, so let's go out there. Once again, always check the description box. There's a lot of useful information I'm going to apply in this video. It will be for the do-it-yourselfer. It will be for the beginning detailer that wants to broaden their experience and their services. So this is one of these cool things because it's a crappy day here in Southern California. It's actually spotty rain. Normally I'd be out of business, but on something like this I can still go out and make money. And this is one of those unique situations where, because I specialize in these kind of niche little areas, you can make really good money. So while I'm actually filming this after I've already done the job, because I've learned to do the introduction after and then just edit it in before as an introduction, this job would have taken me, if I was not making the video, roughly, I bet I could have done it from start to finish in 40 minutes. It was 10 minutes from my house, so I've got 10 minutes of travel time, 10 minutes to come home. And when it comes to operating a business, you've got to understand your costs in order to stay profitable and stay in business. And most business owners don't take the time to understand the true cost of operating a business. So the point is I can charge 150 bucks, which is what I charge the guy. They win, I win. Literally, including travel time, I'm getting paid 150 bucks an hour. I'll take that all day long. So let's go out and check it out, and hopefully be some learning along the way. Okay, here we have our test vehicle, this black Honda Odyssey. I've already filled you in on the specifics or the context of the situation, so let's go in for a close analysis of what we're dealing with. So what I've already done is I have pre-cleaned the area with a solution of rubbing alcohol and distilled water. I mix it 50-50. This car was not pre-washed or detailed or anything, so this panel is where the damage was done. I've already taped this off because I know that I will be working up to this character line around the door handle area. So this is always the sensitive areas anytime you have an edge like this, when you're using the buffer or sandpaper or so forth. So when I first approach a scratch, and scratches, chips, transfer, ultimately it's going to be a case by case. And even in a scratch, for example, here we have part of the damage. And we've got a scratch that extends from here all the way over to here, then kind of stops and goes from here up to here. It goes from here down all the way over here. So literally every part of the equation represents a problem-solving challenge. So you may look at the scratch as like a single entity, which means, oh, it's just a scratch. Well, guess what? The scratch will have different depths to it, different widths to it. So the scratch itself will have to be treated as an individual rather than this whole panel as an individual, because the scratch may not be through the clear coat at the very end. It may be very deep here in the middle, deeper here at this end. It's just a case by case. So that's where you have to inspect, strategize, come up with a game plan, and then move forward. So that's what we have going on here, is just a multiple scratches. Then down here we have this big abraded area. Let me see if I can get it, and I'm going to show it in I'm going to pan up and down to try to show you this abraded area. I'll come over here, see if it picks up. I know the reflection is going to get in the way, but there's this big, thick area of abrasion from where the other guy's car slid up against this car. Then we have some heavier abrasions right along the edge here. And then we have what is possibly transfer right through here and right through here. Now, just so you know, transfer is literally just that. When some material has transferred onto this. Transfer can be anything. Transfer is just a generalization. In this case, it looks like it was a light colored car, and I don't know if it was paint from the car or maybe the bumper was white, who knows, but it looks like it's white transfer. So transfer could be rubber, could be vinyl, could be paint, could be just dirt, could be all sorts of things. The point is transfer is material that is sitting on top of the, in this case, what you would call the substrate, the bottom material, which is the paint. So transfer can be removed first, and then sometimes once you remove the transfer, it will reveal that in fact there's damage or scratches underneath the transfer. So this is what I mean, is that every part of this equation has to be broken down into very specific areas. Down here we even have a little tiny dimple that would require the expertise of a paintless dent guy. If he could get this, I'll see if it picks up right through here. There's a little bit of dimple right alongside this character line of the fender. So what I'm going to do is, so I did a visual inspection. Now I do what's called the fingernail test, and I scratch each thing to assess. So if I can grab an edge, what I'm feeling for is the edge raised? Because if it's raised, then that will suggest that it is transfer, meaning that something is sitting on top of the paint that can be removed first. If I catch an edge and I can tell it's within the paint or sitting below the paint, that means that it's been scratched into the clear coat or the paint, whatever you want to call it. So this is what I do, is I do the fingernail test. Now the good news is that my fingernail is not really grabbing any of this stuff. That is a good indicator, because that means that it's very fixable. Now if I did catch an edge, for example, we have these really fine scratches. I don't know if it's going to pick up, but right through here, which is not even part of this original damage, this is a kitty hauler, grocery getter van. And if you look around, I mean, there's just scratches everywhere on this. But this poor guy happened to, rub up against this car, and now it's almost like a moment, well, where do I stop? Because one thing leads to the next. It's like, well, if I'm going to do these scratches, why not do these? And why not do those and those and those, and on and on and on. So this guy is paying to have fixed what he damaged. So I know this is not part of the original damage that he did, but I can grab a little tiny edge to this. So because it's so minuscule, I know that I could probably get this with the buffer without having to do any wet sanding to remove it. And just as a little side lesson, when it comes to texture, paint texture, and scratches are included in that texture, because scratches are like a valley. Let's say you have a flat surface of your car paint. Now when you scratch it, if you did a cut side view, it'd be like a little valley, a scratch. So that would then be the texture, would be that little valley. So polishing does not change paint texture. Polishing with the buffer, whether it's a wool pad, a foam pad, a rotary polisher, or a DA polisher, will not change the texture. It will only polish the texture as it exists. In order to flatten out paint or to remove a scratch, you literally have to sand it flat or sand it away. So if you have a valley which represents a scratch, like let's say you have a scratch here, you tilted this panel up like this so you have a cutaway view, and now you have the valley which represents a scratch. If you polished enough, eventually you're going to just polish and polish and polish, but what you would end up doing is burning through the clear coat. So you would have to sand away as much as you can based on the thickness of the clear coat in order to change that surface texture. So that's different. And the only way to change surface texture is by sanding it flat. Okay, because if you try to change the texture, you're going to do minimal amount with a buffer, no matter how aggressive you are. So any orange peel, which is that, literally it looks like orange peel. It's that little bumpy texture. So if you look at the reflection of this palm tree, and if you look at the edges, you'll see that it's not perfectly sharp. That's because there's a little bit of orange peel to this paint. So I could polish this all day long and that orange peel effect will remain. The only way to remove it is to sand it flat. And I don't mean flat as in glossy versus flat. I mean flat as in truly flat versus ridges. The only way to remove that is to sand it first and then polish out your sanding marks, and then that's where you have a true perfect flat finish. So I've assessed the scratches. I don't think I'm going to have to do any wet sanding, and I'm going to show you a few tricks that I can use now versus back in the day, let's say 10 years ago. So first things first, which is you want to remove the transfer, because if I was just to polish over this, if I used a wool pad and was aggressive enough, I could likely remove this, but it would be, remember how I said that polishing as a rule will not change the surface texture. So the texture of this is actually a raised area because it's transfer. New material has been added to this paint. So at a sense, if this was your paint, transfer is sitting on top of the paint. So I would just be polishing that area, and yes, eventually it would wear it down, wear it down, wear it down, but I'm also going to be wearing down the clear coat around here. So I want to remove this transfer first before I proceed. So I'm just going to take some cleaner, and this is where I take my magic eraser and I rub. Now this is where, and sure enough, little sidebar, sure enough it is coming off as I suspected. Now I've had people, when I talk about the magic eraser, and hopefully this is showing up, you see how now this is dulled the finish? That is in fact what happens when you use a magic eraser. It will abrade the paint, it will dull the finish. I'm okay with that because I know I'm gonna have to polish this anyways. But now that transfer is almost 100% gone. I can see a few little spots, and then over here, let's see if it's showing. Over here there's some more transfer. So I'm going to finish doing this. But the thing with the magic eraser is you control it. And let's say this was a white car and you're a do-it-yourselfer. You're not looking for perfection. You just want to fix the problem. You're not, overly emotionally attached to your vehicle, but yet you want to correct it in a very simplified way. So if this was a light colored vehicle, you could seriously just use the magic eraser and you would never know if this is a light colored vehicle. But because it's black, it's going to show exactly where you abraded the paint. I'm okay with that, like I said, because I know I'm going to be polishing this. So now I remove the transfer, and just because I can, I'm going to use it on the scratch and see what happens. Because sometimes, even though you can't feel it, sometimes this will take off stuff that your finger can't even detect. And I want to see. It's like, okay, no, it didn't. But you'll also notice that I used the magic eraser and it barely abraded that paint. You have control over this. It's like anything else. How many times you go back and forth, how much pressure you're putting on it, what kind of chemical you're using with it. So this is where experience comes in, and this is where you can maintain control. So, and this is where experience just comes in. You know, obviously the more experience you have, the easier it will be for you to assess the situation and come to a strategy. Now I'm going to use it through here and see if there's any transfer of part of this area, just in case. And it's a good way to prep it also. But really my concern is I just want to remove transfer so that when I'm polishing the actual scratches that are actually within the clear coat. Okay, it didn't change that much. So this is where I'm going to have to polish out. I'm going to polish all this. At this point, this is where I'm going to pan out and I'm going to show you my arsenal of tools. Okay, I've got my two different buffers. I got my rotary or high speed here on the left, my DA or dual action on the right. Now I could fix this because it's pretty minimal with the DA, but I know it will take me longer to get from point A to point B with the DA. In fact, I started with a rotary, and that's where I learned my skills on, was a rotary, so I'm very good at using a rotary, and I can finish to perfection with the rotary. But you could do this with a DA, and so this might be a point if this is a situation like your own car where it's enough to get you off the fence, which means is that you may be a fence sitter and you think, oh, should I invest in a buffer? I don't know what kind of buffer. So I'm going to include a link in the description box of this video. And there is a way for a true beginner to learn how to polish a car with a buffer, and that is with the DA dual action polisher. Incredibly safe, incredibly user friendly. But as an expert, I know, and by expert, I don't mean I know everything. It just means that I've been in the industry long enough to consider myself an expert. I think 25 years of first-hand experience would qualify me for that. I know I can cut to the chase, you know. Once again, part of my strategy, how to get from point A to point B quicker, easier, and with better results. So I'm going to cut to the chase with the high speed first. I'm going to finish up with the DA second. Here's my various polishing pads and sandpaper. Here's my bucket of various polishes. And so I can truly, between all three, I've got the tools and I've got the products. Between all of this, I can truly custom blend my strategy and technique for the situation. And this is where experience comes in, is like, okay, which pad am I going to use, which polish, which buffer, what speed setting, how much pressure, the duration I'm going to allow or need to polish. So that's just where experience comes in. Then I've got my cleaning bucket, which is where I keep my various chemicals. I keep my magic eraser here on the side. This is the bucket jockey. I will be doing a separate video on this. I also have a link on my website for that. Just such a handy little tool, but that's for another time. So at this point, what I'm going to do is, since I didn't have to do anything additional to this scratch, like no color sanding, I've already taped off this character line for protection because I know I'm going to be hitting this with the high-speed buffer and a wool pad. What I will need to do with this area is tape off the very edge and take it one panel at a time in order to protect this edge. And this is what's called risk management. And a lot of guys get careless and they don't have the patience to do risk management, which means you tape off this edge and you avoid risk. Everything comes with its own natural risk. Well, I do my best to avoid or manage it so that I make less mistakes rather than more mistakes. So let me take this off and we'll come back. Okay, I've got this taped off and this is the section I'm going to be working on. Now, because of this character line, I have to break this down into sections, and this is where, you know, you have the difference of a good detailer or a really good detailer is patience and discipline. So I could just polish this without taping it off and just, you know, be careful. But I don't want to just be careful. I want to make sure I don't burn any edges. But because this tape is so wide, and it would be very difficult to have tape that would be exactly this thickness where it would protect both this edge and this edge, I have to break it down. So right now I've taped off this edge and I'm going to focus on this area back to here. Now there's a character line here that is prone or more prone to flat areas because it's got a character line to it. And so I know that it's far more susceptible to burning this edge, but because the scratches go right over it, it's really hard to tape off. So I just have to be extra careful. So what I can do is tap the edge first and remove the scratches. And that's what I will do. I will remove the scratches on this edge first. That will be my first priority. Then after I know that those scratches are gone, I'm going to use some thin tape. I'm going to tape off this character line, and then I can really focus on this and then manage my risk as far as this character line goes. So let me do that, and I'll keep it filming and speed it up so you don't have to endure the boredom. But I want you to be able to see how I actually attack this and break it down into very specific steps. What I'll be using is my Menzerna high performance compound. You can see the little scale here. This little arrow indicates aggressive versus less aggressive. This is very aggressive high performance compound polish. That's a term that's often commingled. Polish and compound, what's the difference? Well, mostly depends on who you ask. So in this case, it's just a small area. That's literally all the polish I'm using, is about 5 little dollops. Now this DeWalt, I can control the speed at the trigger, and I can set the max speed here at the dial. So I know that my max speed in this situation, I don't need to go over 1,000. So I'm just going to keep it this way. I'm just going to barely... Now I was using barely any pressure, and by pressure, if I had to guess, maybe 2 pounds tops. Because all I'm worried about is this character line right here. I don't want to burn through the edge. Once you ring that bell, there's no unringing that bell. There's no going backwards unless you want to get some touch-up paint. I don't want to do that. So now I have removed the scratches just on this character line, and then the rest of these scratches remain. So I'm going to get some really thin tape and apply it and then move forward. Okay, see these two different sizes of tape? This is Scotch brand, which is a 3M owned company. This stuff is more adhesive than blue painter's tape. As a rule, blue painter's tape will take care of probably 90% of the situations. And most guys wouldn't even take the trouble to do this. But I'm very cautious, and for all you beginning detailers, many of you ask like, oh, what about liability insurance? Well, this is one of the reasons I have never had a claim in 25 plus years of doing this. Now, I've paid out on 2 claims, but I paid out of my own pocket. I did not have to make a claim through my insurance. And this is why, because I really am into risk management. But in order to do risk management, you have to understand the nature of the beast, and this is where, you know, experience can't really be taught. It's kind of like you can go to college and learn a lot of stuff, but it just doesn't replace true world life experience. So that's not a perfect that's not perfectly set. This tape is really amazing tape, and the thinner it is, the more it can be stretched. So you can literally stretch this and apply it so you get literally a perfect little arch there as needed. Now that's not perfect, but because I've polished off enough of the scratches on the raised edge, it doesn't have to be perfect. Now the edge is protected and the area in which I've already polished it is protected. Now I can focus on this area and that area. But this is where I keep, you know, multiple tools in my toolbox. It's like an arsenal. You know, different types of guns, let's say, based on what you're trying to kill or what you're trying to accomplish. So it's always good, you know, because the right tool can make or break your world, or simply make your life easier or more difficult. Now that this is taped off, I'm going to put back on the readers because I'm just getting that old. I'm going to apply just a few more dollops of the compound. See that? Just a few more, because it's not going to require too much. And I'm going to work on this area first. What I just noticed now that I have my glasses on is that this, in fact, I'm going to switch tapes, because this green tape really is more aggressive as far as stickability. How's that for a word? I don't even know if that word is truly a word. But what you're trying to accomplish is to make sure you cover the actual round edge, because that's the vulnerable part. So if you have this round edge, but you apply the tape up to that round edge, which is the most vulnerable part, is still exposed. So you need to go just over it. But if the scratch is past here, you need to go just over that edge and cover up that round edge. So that's what I've done, is I've just covered up the round vulnerable edge, but still allowed the scratches to be visible or exposed so that I can in fact fix them. Now you'll notice that I spent more time polishing that because the scratches here are going to be harder to remove because they're on a flat surface. When they're on a character line or a curve, the friction is far more significant that it will remove the scratches far quicker. So on the flat edge, it's going to require more time. And there's a little tiny scratch right there. So I'm just going to add a little more compound, spend a little bit more time right on that part. Now something you might notice is that I'm tilting the buffer up on an edge. It's the same principle, is that in flat it disperses and spreads out the friction to a bigger area. It's kind of like, how do they make metal boats, big metal aircraft carriers float? Well, because they disperse enough area of the water where it can't sink. So it's the same with the protecting the edge here, is friction builds up so much quicker on a sharper edge. So I can apply the same technique with the buffer. So if I hold it flat, it disperses the energy and the friction to a much greater area. And so it's less vulnerable and it will take longer. But I want to cut to the chase, so I tip this on its edge, and now I can build up friction quicker by using the edge. But I'm also going to be putting more swirl marks or holograms, but I can address that later, which I will do with the DA polisher. And what I do as a rule is, if I go up on an edge, I'm going to flatten it out after I use an edge. And that will remove some of the swirl marks already. Okay, this is now fixed. Now I'm going to focus on this area. Now, if you are polishing long enough with tape in place, you will literally polish an edge to where the tape is, because that was protected. So you will have worn down the clear coat, and once you take this off, now I didn't do that in this situation. I'm just referring to, like, let's say I really had to spend some time working the buffer, getting those scratches, because you are polishing away some clear coat material. So you will literally end up with a ridge that's within the clear coat now. So what you may need to do is pull the tape off, wipe the area, and just verify that there's no ridge left. But as a rule, I'm going to go back over it anyways. There's a little bit of tape residue right here. Nothing a little of my distilled alcohol solution won't remedy. So now I just, like anything else I say, is you test, you check your results, you verify you're getting the results that you are after, and then you either move forward or you change course. So this is done, looks fabulous. All I have to be concerned with now is removing any swirl marks. It's a cloudy day here in Southern California. We've actually gotten some rain today. This is a cool thing about being diversified, is I can actually work and do stuff like this on a day that normally I'd be out of business because of the rain. So now I'm just going to repeat this through these other steps. I think you've learned enough here. what I'm going to do now is, instead of this section, I'm now going to work from this section forward. So now I'm going to reposition my tape and protect this edge and just move that direction. I'll take you in for the, actually what I'll do is I'll finish this. I'll bring you back for when I use the DA polisher, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's go in for a quick look. I finished polishing. Just notice that there's still a little residue of polish right through here. Want to get that off. And I use, once again, my distilled alcohol solution because I don't want, because some polishes will actually, you know, they'll fill and cover up, and it'll be kind of deceptive because you think something has been polished away when in fact it's kind of been covered up to a degree with the polish. So I want to strip all the polish off, verify my results, which look amazing. You'll see a little bit of line right here. That's because this area right through here was protected with tape, so that has not been polished. And this area is now more polished than that area. So this is where the DA comes in. It's a far more safer tool, and I can literally polish right over character lines and edges with far less fear of burning them. So this is where I want to now blend in the area, go past the area that I originally polished, and essentially blend in this area into the freshly polished treated area. So I'm just verifying my results. The scratches are gone. I retaped this area off also because this was all taped off, and I want to also blend this with the DA buffer, but I don't want the DA to slap against this door handle. So let me set that up and I'll show you that in progress. Okay, I've hooked up my Griot's Garage DA random orbital. I've got my foam cutting pad because what I'm concerned with now is now removing the holograms or swirl marks that would be visible if we were in the direct sunlight, or if I was holding up a LED light to it. You would still see you know, what's called a uniform scratch pattern. I want to remove that. So I'm going to start out with that same compound, except I'm switching to a foam pad and a DA buffer. Then I will then progress into a finishing pad, a DA buffer, and some finishing polish. But I wanted to show you this. For this application, I'm going to set it at like a level, I'm going to set it at a level 4. That will be sufficient. Okay, something you'll notice is that I spent more time in this area. Then when I got to all these vulnerable areas, I sped it up because I know it's much harder to burn an edge with a DA than with a rotary, but it's still not impossible. Okay, this is incredibly user-friendly. As a rule, I know I would have to just sit here for probably a couple minutes before I'm going to be able to burn through an edge. But I don't even want to come close, okay? Once again, risk management. So all I'm trying to do is blend in the surrounding areas to the highly polished areas and remove my swirl marks. So when it comes to these areas, they're more sensitive, so I can pass over them quicker, versus these big flat areas where the holograms or the swirl marks are going to be more visible once we get in the sunlight. As I was talking, I noticed that at the very edge there was a little bit of scratching, and I know through experience of how much this edge can tolerate as far as polishing goes. So I just spent a little extra time just trying to take it to the next level of perfection, that's all. So I'm going to finish this with the cutting the cutting foam pad. I'll then finish with my Menzurna Superior Performance Polish, and if you look at this scale, it's just got a little bit of abrasives to it, enough with a finished foam pad that will finish this to perfection. And then I'll wax it. I'll bring you in for a closer look, and hopefully you will have learned something along the way, folks. Okay, I finished with the foam cutting pad and the compound. Now I've switched to a foam finishing pad. Now you'll notice that this is what's called, actually I don't know what it's called. I was going to say a waffle weave. They've got so many different types of pads out there. Honestly, if you go on the forums, you're going to hear people that will swear up and down, this pad's the best, whatever. Now trust me, they're not all created equal. As a rule, you get what you pay for. But as far as how the pads are configured, you know, this has a dimple effect to it. You have some with these ridges cut into them. You have some that are flat and solid like the last pad I used. You've got a microfiber cloth pad. Honestly, for 99% of the world and for you out there, it really does not matter, okay? I know you'll have these guys in the forums, they'll say, oh, this guy's a hack, he doesn't know what he's doing. At our shop, where we're doing $2,000 details or whatever, we're gonna use this. It's like, well, that's fine, but that's your audience, okay? A big part of being profitable and being relevant and staying in business is being adaptable and knowing your audience and knowing how to be a voice of reason so that you come up with what's called the winning combination. So let's say I was running a high-end boutique style shop and customers were coming to me, and at a level they already know they're going to be paying top dollar because they're coming to a high-end boutique shop that does nothing but customized detailing. Well, that's not my world. Can I perform at that level? Absolutely, all day long. But it's still not my world. I'm mobile. I'm dealing with, you know, commoners, like this situation. It's a kitty hauler van. The guy did damage to the van. He wants it fixed. The lady is very reasonable. She knows that there's tons of scratches all over her car. So I could come in. It's kind of like this. Let's go with this analogy. Maybe you've heard of it. If you're a hammer, everything is a nail, okay? So there's some guys out there that truly limit themselves because it's like, oh, it's level 10 or nothing. Okay, that's different than over-delivering, because I'm always trying to over-deliver, but over-delivering is still relative to the situation on hand. So the situation here, and that's why context gives meaning to anything. The context is this guy's paying to have what he damaged fixed. The owner of the car knows that her car's not a showpiece. So if I came in and said, oh, I've got to color sand the whole panel, it's going to take me 3 hours, I'm going to charge you $300. He'd be like, go pound sand, dude. It's not a showpiece car, and it would just be inappropriate. So that's why you have to be flexible. It's like the palm tree. You know how palm trees can withstand hurricane force winds on tropical islands? That's because they bend and they flex. Well, that's what you need to do as a detailer also. Don't be the rigid oak, Oak has its place in the world, certainly in the world of metaphors, but when it comes to detailing, you want to be the palm tree and flex and be a voice of reason and say, okay, let's assess all the variables. Let's come to a conclusion that's a win-win for both sides. So I want the work, they want their car fixed, what's reasonable, what's appropriate. So I just talked to certain detailers and I realized that they limit themselves because they become so rigid and they're like a hammer and everything's a nail. It's like, oh, it's got to be level 10 or nothing. The only way to do this right is to wet sand it and go down from there, but I got to charge you $350 to do it. It's like, okay, fine. Then you can kiss that job goodbye. Well, I can still make money, get the job, deliver a good value to my customer, and still deliver something that is appropriate for the situation. Just like when you're strategizing, you've got to figure out what's appropriate based on what you're dealing with. And that's where you have to pull back, assess all the information, then come to a conclusion or a strategy based on all the information or data. That's just a little sidebar for you guys that are trying to get into the business or just beginning. At this point, I have polished it. I've removed the swirl marks to probably 90%. Now I'm going to finish it with this foam pad, and this is how much polish I use. I see guys on these videos that just get so, they just add so much polish, and it's just overkill. And as a beginner, that will be what you will most likely do, because we've all been groomed as society to think that more is always better. Well, sometimes more is just more. It doesn't mean it's better, it's just more. And you don't always want more, because it makes more of a mess and more cleanup. And it uses more of your product, which costs you more money. You get the point? So, it requires very little. Okay, so now this section is done. What I'm going to do is remove this polish. I'm going to finish with some wax. Before I do that though, I got to finish this section over here. I just wanted to show you how much polish I use. Don't overthink the pads, whether it's Lake Country, closed set, what they call it, CSS, closed cell structure or something, I don't know. As a rule, you do get what you pay for. I don't mind spending for nice pads. I'm not going to overthink the texture of it. You know, you'll have endless opinions as to, oh, this is the best because this traps polish in here. It can, I don't even know what the official rational or irrational thinking is behind it. Because honestly, and this is a learning moment for any guy out there that's getting into the business. Most people really do not have a very critical eye. They just have an untrained eye. They will not see imperfections that, as you are in the business longer and longer, your eye will become more and more trained to see the imperfections. The rest of the world, honestly, they don't know the difference between like a level 6 and a level 10. All they see is clean and shiny. They don't know hardly what paint texture is, orange peel. There's just so much ignorance out there. So it's like, why reinvent the wheel? So you can teach your customers a little bit. Some of them will want to learn. Some of them won't give a flying fart or whatever you want to say about it. They just want it done, and they don't have a hypercritical eye, so you don't have to overthink it. So that's the problem, is you're going to go on the forums and you're going to have all these guys endlessly debate all the nuances of detailing and polishing and paint correction, and they're going to use all these glorified terms that are going to confuse and frustrate the hell out of you, and you're going to walk away and think, oh my gosh, I don't stand a chance. Well, guess what? You do, okay? They just want to complicate it, over dramatize it, add theater to it, all in the name that they can look like the expert in the room or the guy with the most experience or the most knowledge in the room. I get it, okay? But that's why it's like, I'm just not a huge fan of the forums. It is a slippery slope once you go in there. Chances are you're just going to hear so many opinions. You're going to be chasing your tail from one product, one technique, one tool after another, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you're overwhelmed, and yet have you gotten any further to what you're trying to accomplish? I'm going to guess not. You're probably just going to be more frustrated and discouraged is what's going to happen. So that's what I'm trying to do, is break it down into steps in a more understandable and simplified approach. Unfortunately, it requires 5,000 words or more to do that. So all you that get irritated because I drone on so much, well, I guess I'm not the channel for you, because I like understanding. It's kind of like once you understand the rules, then you can understand how to break the rules. But understanding does require discipline, to take the time to learn the facts based on experience and so forth. So that's not something that can just really be learned with the Cliff Note version. Sorry about that. I try to simplify it as much as possible, but there's only so much I can do to simplify it. Or let me rewind a little bit. I need to explain it comprehensively so that you can then take that comprehensive knowledge and then simplify your world so that you get more of what you want and you can deliver a better service to your customers. Okay, we have completion. We have virtual perfection. Not a single burnt edge or character line anywhere. We have complete and 100% removal of the scratches. If you look at any angle, now if you look at the outline of this palm tree, you'll still see the orange peel effect, but it's highly polished now. But what we've done is polished and retained the texture of the paint, but we removed all the scratches from every angle. And there's my van. We have perfection. Okay, we have completion. So as in conclusion, always check the description box of each video. In this description box, there's going to be various links, because this video is designed for the do-it-yourselfer. Let's say Johnny homeowner or Johnny car owner comes out and lo and behold, oh my gosh, look what happened at the parking lot, honey. I wonder if there's something I can do about it. Well, yes, you can. And this might be a moment where the husband says, you know what, I've been wanting to polish my own car. Maybe this would be a good time. You obviously can get magic erasers very easily. Rubbing alcohol is very easy to come by. There's kits, which will be part of my links, for polishing kits that include the buffer and the pads and the polishes, that you will be able to produce amazing results, and it's very user-friendly. So check the description box. So if you're a beginning detailer, I also recommend some of these kits, because you can go very far with these beginner kits. And just because it's like a DA polisher, like that Griot's Garage, many people would consider that a beginner polisher, but you can go very far with that. It really is professional grade. Is it the absolute best? Well, it depends on what you define as the best. Yes, you can certainly spend more money on polishers and you might have a more user-friendly experience, but that doesn't mean you can't still end up with the same end result. It might just be a little more uncomfortable for you, might take you a little bit longer, but you can still do it. That's where you have to find the winning combination for you in your world. So point is look in the description box always. You will find stuff there. Also, this is where you can help me out, spread the word. I bet you know of at least one other person in your world that you could share this video with that would also help them out. Pay it forward. I help you, you help me. This is how I supplement my income. Every time you make a purchase through my website at AutoGeek or Amazon or whatever, so long as you click on any link from my website and then you go shopping, spend all your money, trust me. As little or as much as you want, I get a little bit of a commission for it. So you know my agenda. It's to help you out, simplify the world, demystify the world, and help supplement my income so I can keep producing these videos to teach you guys more and more about the world of car care and detailing. So till next time, bye for now.